The wallet landed at my feet with a sound so ordinary that no one else even looked down. People were too busy rushing through the grand entrance of the Metropolitan Museum after another crowded Thursday evening. Tourists. Donors. Curators. Everyone moved with purpose. Except me. I bent down, expecting another forgotten phone or set of keys. Instead, my fingers touched dark Italian leather, worn at the edges but meticulously cared for. Heavy. Far heavier than an empty wallet should have been. Nia. My co-worker, Emma, called from the museum steps. "We're already late." "I'll be there." I slipped the wallet into my hands and looked around. No one appeared to be searching for it. No frantic footsteps. No worried face. Just New York swallowing another anonymous mistake. Inside the staff lounge, Emma glanced at the wallet before hanging her museum badge on the locker. "You should turn it in." "I will." She shrugged. "Or keep the cash." I opened it. There wasn't much cash at all. No credit cards either. No driver's license. Just a folded family photograph. A silver key unlike any I'd ever seen. And several business cards printed on thick black paper. Only one name. Gabriel Stone. No title. No company. No phone number. Strange. What kind of person carries business cards without contact information? Emma laughed. The kind who expects everyone already knows him. I smiled politely. I don't. Neither of us noticed the museum security supervisor standing silently outside the half-open door. His expression changed the instant he saw the black business card. Then he walked away without saying a word. Most people would have handed the wallet to lost and found. Something stopped me. Maybe it was the old photograph. A little girl laughing while sitting on an elderly woman's shoulders. The edges were faded from years of being unfolded. People don't carry pictures like that because they're valuable. They carry them because they're irreplaceable. I understood that feeling. My father's last postcard still lived inside my kitchen drawer. Sometimes memories mattered more than money. I searched every public database for Gabriel Stone. Nothing useful. No social media. No corporate profile. No interviews. Almost as if someone had erased him from the internet. The only result was an address. A restored 19th century building overlooking the East River. No company listed. No residence identified. Just an address. I decided to return the wallet myself. The building looked less like a home and more like a fortress disguised as elegance. Black iron gates. Private security. Landscaped gardens untouched by the city outside. As I approached, two suited men stepped into my path. "Can we help you?" "I found something." "What is it?" "I'd rather give it directly to Mr. Stone." Their expressions hardened instantly. "You've met him before?" "No." "Who told you to come here?" "No one." A third man quietly spoke into an earpiece. Within seconds, every guard at the entrance shifted position. Not aggressively. Precisely. Like pieces moving across a chessboard. I suddenly realized they weren't protecting the building from me. They were protecting someone inside, from whoever might have sent me. The front doors opened. A tall man emerged wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit beneath a black cashmere overcoat. Broad shoulders. Neatly trimmed beard. Eyes that looked as though they had forgotten how to trust anyone. He didn't look at the guards. He looked only at the wallet in my hands. For several long seconds. Neither of us spoke. Finally, he asked one quiet question. "Tell me. Why didn't you keep it?" Before I could answer, one of the guards reached for his concealed radio and whispered words that made every face around us change. "Boss." Someone else returned an identical wallet exactly 12 minutes ago. Gabriel Stone didn't reach for the wallet. He looked at me instead. As if the answer mattered more than the object itself. Bring them both inside. The guards exchanged uneasy glances. Neither questioned the order. The estate was impossibly quiet. No portraits. No extravagant decorations. Just polished oak floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the East River, and the unmistakable feeling that every room had been designed for function rather than comfort. Someone had built this house to survive. Not to live in. A second wallet rested on the conference table. Identical leather. Identical stitching. Even the same worn corner near the fold. I placed mine beside it. The differences were almost invisible. Almost. Gabriel slipped on a pair of white cotton gloves before opening the first wallet. Then the second. His movements were careful. Practiced. Like a conservator handling centuries-old manuscripts instead of personal belongings. He removed the family photographs. At first glance they looked identical. Then I noticed something. The little girl's ribbon. Blue in one photograph. Green in the other. You saw that quickly. His voice held no praise. Only curiosity. I work around paintings. I answered honestly. We're trained to notice details people overlook. Something changed in his expression. Not warmth. Recognition. Across the table, an older advisor named Arthur quietly interrupted. We should end this conversation. Gabriel ignored him. Instead, he slid both photographs toward me. Which one belongs inside the wallet you found? Arthur frowned. She's a civilian. Exactly. Gabriel folded his hands. She has nothing to gain. I studied both images. The leather around one photograph had faded into a lighter outline over many years. The other photograph was newer. Artificially aged. This one. I pointed to the blue ribbon. It stayed in the wallet longer. Arthur's shoulders tensed. Gabriel simply nodded. I agree. Without another word, he tossed the second wallet into the fireplace. Flames swallowed it almost instantly. No hesitation. No regret. I stared. You burned it. It wasn't mine. You knew. I suspected. Arthur finally lost his composure. Gabriel, that's reckless. No. Gabriel's eyes remained on the fire. Reckless would have been believing it. Silence settled across the room. Then he turned back to me. You never answered my question. Which one? Why didn't you keep the wallet? I looked at the photograph again. My mother used to say, if something carries someone's memories, it deserves to find its way home. For the first time, the room became completely still. Not because of me. Because of him. Gabriel lowered his eyes. Almost imperceptibly. As though that sentence had reached somewhere he kept locked away. Arthur noticed it too. He immediately changed the subject. Miss Carter, we'll arrange transportation. I'm capable of getting home. I'm sure you are. His smile never reached his eyes. But after today, home may no longer be the safest place. I laughed awkwardly. I returned a wallet. Arthur answered quietly. No. You stepped into a test someone spent months preparing. Before I could ask what he meant, the front entrance burst open. One of Gabriel's security captains hurried inside, breathing harder than any professional should. He handed Gabriel a sealed envelope. No fingerprints. No cameras caught who delivered it. Gabriel opened the letter. He read only the first line. Every trace of color disappeared from his face. He slowly handed the paper to me. 5 words. Written in neat black ink. She returned the wrong wallet. Then, beneath that sentence. A photograph taken less than an hour earlier. It showed me leaving the museum. Smiling. Completely unaware that someone had already been following me. I should have walked away. Any reasonable person would have. Instead, I found myself sitting across from Gabriel Stone while Manhattan disappeared behind walls of reinforced glass. The envelope remained on the table between us. Neither of us touched it again. Finally, I broke the silence. What does "the wrong wallet" mean? Gabriel leaned back, exhaustion replacing the authority he'd carried at the gate. It means someone wanted me to believe you found something you never actually did. That doesn't answer the question. No. It answers the important part. His honesty was strangely frustrating. He wasn't hiding behind lies. He was hiding behind omissions. There was a difference. Arthur stepped forward. Gabriel. She deserves an explanation. No. She deserves a chance to leave before this becomes her life. Gabriel looked at me. You still can. I almost laughed. You think I understand enough to make that decision? For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. More like regret. Fair point. He opened the genuine wallet again. This time he removed the silver key. It wasn't a house key. Nor a car key. Its teeth were unusually narrow, almost ornamental. He placed it carefully on the table. My father carried this until the day he died. You never used it. I never knew what it opened. Arthur stiffened. Gabriel. I've searched for 15 years. Enough. No. His voice remained calm, but something deeper surfaced beneath it. I've spent 15 years protecting an empire. He glanced at the key. And 15 years failing to unlock the only thing my father left me. There it was. Not power. Not confidence. Grief. Quiet. Patient. Still unfinished. For the first time, I stopped seeing the man everyone feared. I saw a son who had inherited questions instead of answers. A sharp vibration interrupted the room. My phone. 3 missed calls. Emma. Then a text. Don't come to the museum tomorrow. Security is asking about you. Another message arrived before I could respond. Not from Emma. Unknown sender. Check your employee profile. I logged into the museum database. My staff account had been suspended. Reason: pending investigation into unauthorized access to restricted collections. I stared at the screen. I never accessed restricted collections. Arthur looked unsurprised. They're moving quickly. Gabriel stood immediately. Who authorized the suspension? The museum board. Who sits on the acquisitions committee? Arthur answered without checking. 5 trustees. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. And 1 new donor. Arthur slowly nodded. Victor Lang. The name meant nothing to me. It clearly meant everything to Gabriel. He shouldn't be involved. He invested $18 million last month. Gabriel looked toward the window. He's buying influence. No. Arthur corrected quietly. He's buying silence. Before anyone spoke again, the security monitors surrounding the room switched on automatically. Every screen displayed the museum. Front entrance. Loading dock. Restoration lab. Employee parking garage. One camera zoomed in without anyone touching the controls. My locker. A maintenance worker calmly opened it using a master key. He removed a small velvet pouch. Then he looked directly into the camera. Slowly. He placed the pouch back inside. Closed the locker. Walked away. Arthur whispered first. They're planting evidence. My heartbeat accelerated. I've never seen that man. Gabriel had already reached for his coat. We're going. I looked at him. The police should handle this. He met my eyes. If this were about justice, I would agree. His expression hardened, not with anger, but with certainty earned from painful experience. But someone just framed an innocent woman before the investigation even began. He opened the door. And people who rush to create evidence usually do it because the real evidence is about to disappear. By sunrise, my employee ID no longer opened the museum doors. The security scanner flashed red. Access denied. Visitors walked past without noticing. Co-workers avoided eye contact. Only yesterday I had been restoring 18th-century paintings. Today, I looked like someone security had been warned about. A uniformed officer approached. Miss Carter? Yes. I'm going to ask you to come with me. I've done nothing wrong. I hope that's true. Hope. Not certainty. That single word hurt more than the accusation. Inside the museum conference room sat 6 people. The museum director. 2 attorneys. 3 trustees. And at the far end of the polished walnut table, a man whose confidence filled the room before he spoke. Victor Lang. Mid-60s. Impeccably dressed. Silver hair. The kind of smile perfected through decades of fundraising galas and television interviews. He stood as I entered. Miss Carter. I've heard wonderful things about your work. I didn't answer. He continued smiling. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. The director cleared her throat. A velvet pouch containing an undocumented emerald seal was recovered from your locker this morning. I've never seen it. The surveillance footage says otherwise. It was planted. One trustee sighed impatiently. Everyone says that. Victor never interrupted. He simply watched. Studying my reactions. Not searching for guilt. Searching for something else. Finally he spoke. If someone framed you, why would they choose you? The room turned toward me. It sounded like sympathy. It wasn't. It was strategy. Force the innocent person to explain a motive she doesn't have. Silence becomes suspicion. I understood the game. I don't know. Victor nodded gently. An honest answer. Yet somehow, I still felt like I had lost. Across town, Gabriel entered a private archive beneath one of his shipping offices. No luxury. No bodyguards. Just shelves filled with forgotten ledgers. Arthur followed several steps behind. You recognized Victor's name immediately. I hoped I'd never hear it again. Gabriel unlocked an old steel cabinet. Inside rested a newspaper clipping 20 years old. A charity fundraiser. The headline praised Victor Lang for donating priceless artwork to museums across the country. Another photograph sat beneath it. Victor. Gabriel's father. Standing side by side. Friends. Arthur quietly closed the cabinet. Dominic, Gabriel interrupted. My father trusted him. Arthur corrected him. He thought he did. Gabriel stared at the photograph. He always told me the most dangerous men wore expensive suits instead of carrying weapons. A bitter smile crossed his face. I should have listened sooner. The museum hearing ended without charges. Not because they believed me. Because they wanted more evidence. Temporary suspension. Public investigation. My reputation would remain in limbo. Outside the museum, reporters were already waiting. Microphones surrounded me. Did you steal the artifact? Are you connected to organized crime? Why were you seen entering Gabriel Stone's estate? My heart sank. No one should have known that. Someone had leaked it deliberately. Flashbulbs exploded across the sidewalk. Then, unexpectedly, the crowd became silent. Not because the questions stopped. Because every camera suddenly turned away from me. Toward the street. A black vintage sedan rolled slowly to the curb. Gabriel stepped out alone. No convoy. No guards. No attempt to hide. Arthur looked horrified. "You can't do this." Gabriel ignored him. He walked directly through the crowd until he stood beside me. Every reporter leaned forward. Every camera pointed at us. Victor watched from the museum steps without moving. Gabriel spoke calmly enough for every microphone to capture each word. "Miss Carter. I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For allowing my problems to become yours." He removed the silver key from his pocket. Then, in front of dozens of cameras, he placed it in my hand. "I believe you're the only person left who can tell me what this really unlocks." The reporters gasped. Victor's smile disappeared for the first time. And from somewhere inside the museum, an antique grandfather clock began striking noon. The silver key suddenly grew warm in my palm. The silver key was still warm when I closed my hand around it. Not hot. Not impossible. Simply warmer than cold metal should have been. I told myself it was because everyone had been watching. Because my pulse hadn't slowed since Gabriel placed it in my hand before half the city's press. There had to be a rational explanation. There usually was. Gabriel opened the passenger door of his sedan. "You don't have to trust me." "I don't." "Good." His answer caught me off guard. Blind trust gets people hurt. He waited. I'd rather earn it. For the first time since meeting him, he wasn't speaking like a man giving orders. He sounded like someone asking for a second chance he wasn't sure he deserved. I got into the car. Not because I trusted him. Because too many people seemed desperate to stop me. The sedan stopped outside the museum after closing hours. No flashing police lights. No reporters. Only the enormous bronze clock overlooking the Grand Hall. Gabriel studied it quietly. "My father designed this restoration." "You mean he funded it?" "No. He restored it himself." I frowned. I thought he built shipping companies. He did. He also repaired clocks. The answer sounded absurd. Until it didn't. Gabriel looked toward the enormous pendulum. He believed clocks told the truth. How? They never cared who owned time. Before I could answer, Arthur arrived carrying an old leather portfolio. Inside lay architectural blueprints of the museum from almost 80 years earlier. Most of the rooms still existed. One didn't. A maintenance chamber hidden directly behind the clock tower. No public entrance. No modern records. Only one handwritten note along the margin. Emergency mechanical access. Arthur pointed toward the silver key. It matches the original lock dimensions. I looked at Gabriel. You've had museum blueprints all these years. I found them after my father died. And never opened the room. I couldn't. Why? He didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, I convinced myself whatever was inside would explain everything. His eyes never left the drawings. I was afraid it wouldn't. There it was again. Not fear of enemies. Fear of disappointment. A son protecting the last unanswered question about his father. We entered through the restoration wing. The museum felt different at night. Empty galleries. Long shadows. Centuries of history breathing in silence. Every footstep echoed. I reached the clock first. Hidden beneath the brass winding mechanism sat a tiny keyhole almost invisible beneath layers of restoration paint. Arthur slowly stepped back. This is where I leave you. Gabriel looked surprised. You aren't coming? Arthur smiled sadly. Some doors belong to families. I inserted the silver key. It fit perfectly. One turn. Nothing. Second turn. A deep metallic click echoed inside the wall. The entire clock shifted forward a few inches. Ancient gears groaned. Dust drifted through the air. A narrow passage revealed itself behind the mechanism. No one spoke. Gabriel stared into the darkness. I've imagined this moment since I was 21. You can still walk away, I whispered. He smiled without looking at me. No. I've been walking away from it for 15 years. Together we stepped inside. The hidden room wasn't filled with gold. Or weapons. Or secret ledgers. Only shelves. Hundreds of carefully preserved handwritten letters. Each envelope carried the same elegant handwriting. Each addressed to one person. Gabriel Stone. My breath caught. They're from your father. Gabriel slowly picked up the first envelope. The seal had never been broken. His hands trembled. Not from danger. From grief. He opened the letter. Read only the first sentence. Then closed his eyes. I watched the strongest man I'd ever met struggle against tears he had buried for years. Finally he handed the page to me. The first line read, If you are reading this, then the woman who returned my wallet is standing beside you, because I trusted her long before either of you knew her name. Gabriel read the first letter 3 times before he found the strength to continue. His father had never written like a mafia boss. There were no commands. No warnings. Only the quiet honesty of a man who had spent too many years saying the wrong things aloud and the right things only on paper. If she returned my wallet instead of keeping it, trust her judgment before you trust your own anger. The room fell silent. I looked at Gabriel. So, your father expected someone to find the wallet? Gabriel slowly nodded. I thought it was a keepsake. It wasn't. It was a test. Arthur lowered his eyes. He designed it after your mother died. Gabriel looked at him sharply. You knew. I knew there were letters. I never knew what they said. That distinction mattered. For years Gabriel had blamed Arthur for keeping secrets. Now he realized Arthur had been protecting a promise rather than hiding the truth. We opened another envelope. Inside rested a folded sketch of the museum clock. Several handwritten arrows pointed toward hidden compartments throughout the building. Beneath the drawing, one sentence had been underlined twice. History is never stolen all at once. It disappears one honest person at a time. I stared at the handwriting. My father used to say something similar. Gabriel looked at me. What? People don't destroy museums by burning paintings. I swallowed. They destroy them by convincing good people to look away. Neither of us spoke. The similarity wasn't coincidence. Arthur slowly removed a small notebook from the portfolio. It isn't. He opened a yellowed page. 2 signatures. Gabriel's father. And mine. Or rather, my father's. Beneath them stood the title of a cultural preservation initiative founded 27 years earlier. My father had never mentioned it. Neither had anyone else. They worked together. Arthur nodded. For almost a decade. Why keep that secret? Because the project wasn't protecting artwork. He looked toward the shelves of letters. It was protecting evidence. Every piece suddenly began fitting together. The fake wallet. The museum. Victor Lang's donations. The planted artifact. Someone had never wanted stolen paintings. They wanted access to what had been hidden behind them. A slow clap echoed through the passageway. One pair of hands. Measured. Patient. Victor Lang stepped into the hidden chamber without raising his voice. I wondered how long it would take. Behind him stood several museum trustees. Not armed. Not shouting. Simply confident. Victor smiled at Gabriel. Your father always believed goodness would outlast greed. He looked at me. And once again. An honest woman proved him right. Gabriel moved instinctively in front of me. Victor noticed. You've changed. No. Gabriel answered calmly. I've finally stopped confusing suspicion with wisdom. Victor sighed. That's unfortunate. He held up a small electronic device. No threats. No violence. I've grown too old for both. He pressed a button. Throughout the museum, emergency shutters began sealing every gallery. Heavy steel doors rolled into place. The lights shifted to emergency power. Arthur whispered under his breath. He locked down the entire building. Victor nodded pleasantly. Federal investigators will arrive in 43 minutes. They'll discover Miss Carter inside a sealed archive containing stolen evidence. He turned toward me. The headlines will write themselves. Gabriel's expression remained remarkably calm. You still think this is about reputation? Victor smiled. It always is. Gabriel slowly lifted the first letter from his father's collection. No. His voice was steadier than I had ever heard. This. He looked at me before finishing the sentence. Stopped being about my reputation the moment she chose to return a wallet instead of walking away. Victor's smile faded ever so slightly. Because for the first time, Gabriel Stone had made a decision that wasn't driven by fear, power, or revenge. It was driven entirely by trust. Then Arthur reached beneath the final shelf and froze. Hidden inside a narrow wooden compartment lay one last sealed envelope. Unlike every other letter. It wasn't addressed to Gabriel. It was addressed to me. Across the front, in the same elegant handwriting, were 7 words that made every person in the room fall silent. For Nia Carter, when she finally finds me. No one reached for the envelope. Not even Victor. For the first time since he entered the hidden archive, certainty abandoned his face. He stared at my name written across the cream-colored paper. Nia Carter. He whispered it as though testing whether history had made a mistake. It shouldn't exist. Arthur answered quietly. But it does. Gabriel stepped beside me. Not in front of me. Not to shield me. Beside me. The difference mattered. Weeks ago, he would have solved every problem by standing between danger and everyone else. Now. He understood that trust meant allowing someone to stand with him. You should open it, he said. My fingers hesitated over the seal. I don't even know your father. Gabriel looked at the handwriting. Neither did I. But he still spent 15 years speaking to me. There was no bitterness in his voice anymore. Only sadness for the years he had lost. I broke the seal. Inside rested a single handwritten letter. And beneath it, a faded museum admission ticket dated 26 years earlier. The letter began simply. Nia, if this reaches you, then kindness has survived longer than fear. I stopped breathing. The room disappeared around me. The next lines explained everything I never knew to ask. Your mother once returned something priceless to me. Not money. Not art. She returned my belief that decent people still existed. I looked toward Arthur. My mother knew Gabriel's father. Arthur nodded slowly. They met only twice. That was enough. The letter continued. She refused every reward I offered. Instead, she asked me to promise one thing. If her daughter ever needed help, never let my family repay the debt with money. Repay it by protecting her chance to remain the person her mother raised. A tear slipped down my cheek before I realized I was crying. Not because of the promise. Because my mother had never told me. She had done something extraordinary. Then quietly returned home and continued living an ordinary life. Gabriel watched me without speaking. He understood. Some acts of goodness lose their meaning the moment they become performances. Victor laughed softly. So this was all sentiment. He looked around the archive. I expected secrets. I found gratitude. Gabriel folded the letter carefully. No. You found the one thing you've never understood. Victor raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Why honest people can't be bought. Victor's smile vanished. Everyone has a price. I answered before Gabriel could. No. Some people simply have responsibilities. My mother wasn't protecting a fortune. She was protecting the kind of person she wanted me to become. Silence filled the room. Victor studied me for several seconds. Then he sighed. I underestimated you. No. Arthur corrected him. You underestimated ordinary decency. Emergency lights suddenly flashed red throughout the museum. A recorded announcement echoed through every gallery. Federal agents have entered the building. Victor's expression changed instantly. Not fear. Calculation. He reached into his jacket. Gabriel's body tensed. Instead of a weapon, Victor removed a small flash drive. He placed it gently on the table beside the letters. I could destroy everything. He looked directly at Gabriel. Or. You can. Everyone stared at him. Victor continued. If investigators discover these letters, your father's relationship with my foundation becomes public. The media won't wait for context. They'll call him corrupt. They'll bury his real legacy beneath headlines. He turned toward me. And they'll say the museum curator helped hide it. The room became painfully quiet. This wasn't a choice between truth and lies. It was a choice between two different truths. One preserved history. The other protected reputations. Gabriel slowly closed his father's final letter. For years he had chased answers. Now those answers demanded something from him. He looked at me. What would your mother do? Before I could answer, the museum doors above us burst open. A voice echoed down the hidden passage. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Then another voice followed immediately behind it. One that froze Victor where he stood. Nobody move. I'll explain why every person in this room has been lied to. Including the FBI. The voice belonged to Special Agent Elena Brooks. She stepped into the hidden archive with two FBI agents behind her, their weapons lowered but ready. No panic. No shouting. Only controlled precision. Her eyes swept across the room before settling on Victor Lang. So. She said quietly. You finally opened the archive. Victor smiled. I've been waiting for you. I know. You've been waiting 20 years. Gabriel frowned. You know each other? Neither answered immediately. Instead, Elena removed an old leather identification wallet from her coat. Not an FBI credential. A faded photograph. Victor. Gabriel's father. And a younger Elena standing beside them. I wasn't assigned to this investigation. She looked at Gabriel. I grew up inside it. The room fell silent. My father and yours built a confidential partnership after they discovered international art collections were being used to move illegal money across borders. She turned toward Victor. And Mr. Lang volunteered to become the public face of the museums. Victor nodded once. I became the bait. Arthur looked stunned. You were never the mastermind. Victor shook his head slowly. No. I was the distraction. Every assumption collapsed. For years Gabriel had believed Victor manipulated charities to protect criminals. The truth was almost unbearable. Victor had sacrificed his own reputation to keep the real network convinced they still controlled him. Even the media scandals had been carefully tolerated. So why frame Nia? Gabriel asked. Victor's shoulders sank. I didn't. Everyone stared at him. I leaked your meeting with her. I never planted the emerald. I never suspended her. His voice carried genuine regret. I wanted the organization to believe she mattered. So they would expose themselves trying to reach her. I felt the floor disappear beneath me. You used me. Yes. I also assigned agents to watch you every hour. Elena nodded quietly. He demanded it. Victor looked directly at me. I gambled with your peace. But never with your life. Gabriel's expression hardened. You should have told us. I couldn't. If anyone inside the network believed I was protecting her, they would have disappeared forever. Elena opened the flash drive Victor had placed on the table. Thousands of encrypted financial records appeared. Museum donations. Shipping manifests. Auction receipts. Every transaction connected to the same offshore consortium. The network is finished, Elena said. These records complete the case. Gabriel looked at the letters covering the shelves. What about my father? Elena smiled sadly. He was never under investigation. He was our confidential witness. The word struck Gabriel harder than any weapon ever could. My entire life. He whispered. I believed he built a criminal empire. Arthur stepped closer. No. He inherited one. And spent the rest of his life quietly dismantling it. Gabriel closed his eyes. I hated him. Elena answered softly. He knew. He still believed you'd become a better man than he ever was. Silence wrapped around the archive. Not empty silence. Healing silence. The kind that follows years of carrying the wrong story. Federal agents began securing the evidence. No handcuffs. No dramatic arrests. Only careful documentation. History finally choosing facts over rumors. I looked toward Gabriel. What happens now? He smiled faintly. I don't know. It was the first time I'd heard him admit uncertainty without seeing it as weakness. My father spent his life controlling outcomes. He looked at the letters. I think I'd rather start learning people. Before I could answer, Arthur quietly unfolded the museum blueprint one last time. His finger stopped at a location no one had noticed before. A tiny handwritten mark hidden inside the original architect's signature. 3 words. Final exhibit room. Arthur frowned. There shouldn't be another room. Elena looked at the blueprint. There isn't. She stopped speaking. Then looked at me. The museum inventory lists one artifact that has never been displayed. Gabriel followed her gaze. The missing object. He looked toward the wallet resting quietly beside the letters. Was never inside the wallet. It was waiting. For the person honest enough to return it. 6 months later, the Metropolitan Museum unveiled its newest exhibition. Not the most expensive. Not the rarest. Simply the most honest. The gallery was called The Value of Returning. There were no jewels displayed beneath the first glass case. Only an old leather wallet. The same wallet I had picked up on a crowded museum staircase. Its description filled only 2 lines. Returned by a stranger. Changed more lives than anyone expected. Visitors paused longer there than anywhere else. Some smiled. Some cried quietly. Almost all of them walked away asking themselves the same question. What would I have done? The investigation reshaped more than the museum. The international laundering network collapsed after years of hidden financial records became public. Executives resigned. Collectors surrendered stolen collections. Museums across 3 countries reopened archives that had remained sealed for decades. Victor Lang testified openly. He accepted criticism without defending himself. The truth, he told the court, arrives too late only when good people stop carrying it. Arthur retired after cataloging every letter Gabriel's father had written. He refused every interview. They belonged to one family, he always answered. Not to headlines. As for Gabriel, the newspapers still called him a mafia boss. Some reputations outlive the people who create them. He never argued. Instead, he quietly dissolved businesses built on intimidation and invested in restoring libraries, museums, and historical collections his father had once protected in secret. Power no longer meant controlling fear. It meant protecting what fear had almost erased. One afternoon he admitted something he had never confessed to anyone. I spent years believing strength meant never needing another person. We were standing inside the restored clock chamber where everything had begun. Sunlight poured through the stained glass windows. Dust floated like tiny stars. My father left me an empire. He smiled faintly. You taught me how to leave parts of it behind. I laughed softly. I only returned a wallet. No. He looked at me with the same quiet honesty that had slowly replaced suspicion. You returned my future. The museum board formally cleared my name. The false accusations were withdrawn. Instead of returning to my old position, I accepted a new role leading the museum's Provenance and Cultural Integrity Division. Not because I wanted a promotion. Because every object deserved the same chance the wallet had been given. To find its rightful story. On my first day, I unlocked the newly discovered final exhibit room. There was no hidden fortune. No legendary artifact. Only a small wooden display stand holding one final envelope. Addressed simply, to whoever chose honesty when no one was watching. Inside rested a single handwritten note from Gabriel's father. History survives because ordinary people make extraordinary choices without expecting applause. Nothing more. Nothing else was needed. I folded the letter carefully and returned it to its place. Some things belong to everyone. Some belong exactly where they are. That evening, the museum closed as golden light settled across Manhattan. Gabriel waited outside beneath the familiar stone steps where I had first found the wallet. No bodyguards. No motorcade. Just a man in a navy suit carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed me one. So. He smiled. Are you still planning to return lost things? I looked at the wallet now resting forever inside the museum behind us. I think some things aren't meant to be returned. They're meant to remind us who we are. He nodded. Neither of us reached for dramatic promises. Neither of us rushed toward a perfect ending. We simply walked through the city together. Side by side. No longer connected by a lost wallet. But by the quiet decision to trust another human being when it would have been easier not to. Sometimes destiny doesn't begin with a gunshot, a fortune, or a grand declaration. Sometimes. It begins with one honest person bending down to pick up something everyone else walked past.